what I did was I used this pickle fork. Okay, I wedged it in there, and at the tip of it, you hit it with a hammer, and you leave the nut on there so that you can securely, okay, let the joint, ball joint, drop so that it still doesn't fall sporadically. Okay, so this is what I call a careful uninstallation. Okay, what we have right here is the new knuckle and wheel bearing assembly, as well as the assembly for the speed sensor and the wheel hub, the surface of the wheel hub. All right, and okay, the anchor bracket holes for the caliper bracket and the calipers to sit on. Okay, just to give you a demonstration. So we put, okay, on the surface of the wheel hub assembly, anti-seize. Now why do we put anti-seize? Think very clear about it, okay? This is for mechanics, technicians, and engineers as well, okay, who want to learn. Just like myself, I'm learning every day, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't get down and dirty in order to learn, okay, the actual sequence behind this. Because if you really want to go to school to be an engineer, you need to learn, okay, the fundamental of mechanics. You need to learn troubleshooting. Okay, so you need to learn repair, you need to learn about materials, you need to learn about a lot of things. You need to learn about the sequence. You need to learn why these parts are made that way. This is how engineers, you know, are going to be able to create their own parts. But anyways, all right, going back to this. Why do we put anti-seize on the surface of a wheel hub? Okay, so that over time, okay, when your rotors are changed after a resurface, okay, or before a resurface, okay, because you only really get one resurface out of your rotors. So why do we do this? We do this because, see, this is a forged casting, okay? It's a steel. It's not an aluminum, okay? It's not a billet, and it's not aluminum wise, and it's not a 304 stainless. So that means it's gonna corrode over time, okay? Even with this galvanized, doesn't matter, only lasts so long. Also, as for the rotor, same thing. It's a cast iron, okay? So the back surface of those rotors and the surface of these hubs, they mate together. So what that means is over time, they're going to seize. They're going to get surface rust and they're going to bond together. And you're going to be using a hammer, okay, to get these things off. You don't want to do that. So anti-seize is like a lubricant that stays on there longer than a WD-40. WD-40 application. This will stay on here longer. So always throw this on the surface of your wheel hub. It doesn't hurt. Okay, you're one step forward to making your life easier for everybody, for yourself. Why do you want to suffer for? Do you like suffering? I don't like suffering. So this is the way you do this. Okay? And this is just a demonstration of what it'll look like when it's back on. I haven't gotten all the bolts in. I just, tacked them all on just to show you how it looks. because I want to clean these threads. And I'm going to put a little bit of anti-seize on all the threads so that it's easier. Not that much, just a little bit. A hair amount. See my finger? This much. Just a bit. And then you just throw it on a little bit of the threads. It'll be easier to take these nuts off. Okay? This is very easy to do. Now, having said that, when you put this knuckle back on, the lower control arm, okay, will need some assistance to lift this up. So don't screw it up. Okay? Okay. So now we will torque the castle nut, okay, onto this, to the axle. Okay, we will use a 5mm hex head socket to hold this, okay, and while holding this, using a breaker bar and a 3/8 drive to 1/4 inch attachment, or you could even use a 1/2 inch attachment if it's a 1/2 inch drive to a 1/2 inch attachment, okay, and a 5mm hex head socket, okay, to hold this nut, to hold this stud, sorry, and using a wrench, either an adjustable one, okay, or a 19mm wrench, okay, 9mm wrench, and while holding the breaker bar, you will turn this wrench clockwise until it starts to bottom out. And once it bottoms out, then you will torque this, okay, to 125, between 125 and 130 foot-pounds. Okay, now if you don't have the torque specifications for this knuckle assembly, I would recommend you start learning about torque values for sizes and grades for bolts. Usually these are grade 8 bolts, okay, from the factory. Okay, now the lower the grade, the lesser the torque spec, but it depends on the application. So with a standard grade 8 application, okay, usually each millimeter adds a value of 7 to 7.45 foot-pounds of torque, okay, per size, per millimeter, okay, on average. Okay, that's the rule of thumb. So if a 19mm nut is being secured onto a stud, usually you will calculate using that method. Okay, so this is the way to do it. This is the Bible. Okay, now for the lower control arm ball joint, this is a 30mm nut, and this 30mm nut, okay, should give you a torque specification of 210 to 228 foot-pounds. Okay, again, that's via using the calculation. Now, what engineer specifications specify, as long as you're a little bit under or just a tiny tad over, I would always stay a little bit under. Okay, it never hurts. Between 2 and 5 foot-pounds is fine. Anything under that wouldn't be good for the application. Okay, and over time with vibrations, maybe the nut might not settle in. That's why they test, okay, nuts, how long nuts can stay on studs for, and that's why using hard, you know, research over time and development, trial and error, this is how this is done. So use that as a Bible.